The Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Hey there. We just got cut off, right, Mike? You were saying the other side of the rebrand is what? Finish it up.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's suspense. I've always found that being on the other side of a rebrand for an organization is like a complete energy boost and like a breath of just fresh air, right? It's so nice. So yeah, good to hear that you're going through that rebrand. It's difficult maybe when you're going through it, but you've got so many wonderful things to look forward to.
It's awesome. I mean, it's just re-energized our franchise community, our team. I'm so energized by it. Yeah, it's a lot of hard work. There are a lot of details that you have to think through and work through. And bottom line is it's got to be a success, right? You've got to execute well. That's all that it comes down to. So, but it's been so fun.
Yeah.
Well, let's welcome everyone to the show. I'm Steven Zakash, joined by Mike Lewski. Today, we are thrilled to dive into conversation about the role of empathy and leadership. And what I love about these conversations is when we explore these different verticals and you can see how empathy plays out in different businesses. Last week, we had some great conversations in the pet space. Today, we get into health and wellness. Mike, tell us a little bit more about our guest today.
Oh, Stephen, I'm excited to do that. So our guest today is Shane Evans. She's a visionary leader who co-founded Heights Wellness Retreat, who we were just talking about, formerly known as Massage Heights. And it was founded with a mission to make therapeutic wellness experiences more accessible. Her leadership journey is rooted in her personal story because at the age of 19, Shane experienced chronic back pain and found relief through massage therapy. But the cost made it inaccessible, which I think we all understand and know that challenge. So this challenge inspired her to create a business that would bring affordable wellness to everyone. And then so in 2004, she took a leap of faith, investing her savings and cashing out her 401k to open the first location in San Antonio. And then by 2020, the brand had grown to over 100 locations across the US and Canada. And then after stepping away for a time, Shane returned as the CEO recently in 2024 for the brand's 20-year anniversary. And now going through rebranding the company to Heights Wellness Retreat and reaffirming her commitment to the wellness and leadership with purpose that she brought to the business. So Shane, it's an absolute pleasure for us to have you here on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. I love talking about our brand, and I feel very privileged to be here today to have that opportunity. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're excited, and we know our audience is going to benefit a lot by the leadership style that you bring. But maybe to kick things off, Shane, why don't you start by just sharing how empathy has shaped your leadership journey and then how it's gone into the mission of Heights Wellness Retreat?
Sure. I'm happy to do that. Well, franchising is a model that requires people to work with one another, right? It is collaborative. It should be collaborative. It should be that we're on this quest and this mission and this purpose together. And I think that a lot of young franchisors get really caught up in the idea of the fact that they own the brand and they know what's best for the brand and it's going to be this way.
Right.
But the bottom line is it doesn't work that way. When people buy into your brand, whether they're an employee of the franchisor, a team member of the franchisee, or the franchisee themselves, it is, they're buying into something because they believe in it, and they also believe that they can have they can leave their footprint on it or their thumbprint on it, right? And so I think empathy really is so important in the franchise business model because it's really about people being heard, right? They want to be part of something that is meaningful. They do want to leave their mark. And in order to do that, they have to be heard. And so as franchisors and the leadership teams of franchisors, we've got to just be very open to listening and really listening. And the franchisees have got to be able to have a forum for expressing their ideas, maybe their frustrations, and know that we're really taking those things seriously. They've got massive investments in the brand. And they are just as much a partner in the business as anybody else is. And so I think it's just empathy is about learning to really hear people. And we're not always perfect at it, but, really, really striving to be good listeners and respectful of people and how they're feeling in the moment. And I could give examples about, franchisees as they're going through the process, right? Site selection process. Maybe it's taking longer to find that site, or they're frustrated with the negotiations or what have you. Well, that brings on anxiety, right? And we have to understand that. We have to understand how to help them through that process of anxiety, and that it's okay to feel that way, and that we're their partners in this. So that's just one example.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love the point that you called it a quest.
Yeah.
And also, I really liked how you sort of view it from not just the franchise or person, but even your employees, the clients, right? It really does involve everyone.
It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the retreat level, we call our locations retreats because it truly is a retreat away from, sort of the daily grind. Culture is really important, and who we bring on as franchisees ultimately will determine who the kind of front line is, right? Those franchisees, if they're the right franchisees, they're hiring the right management teams and so on and so forth. And, I have a rule, I call it the grandma rule. And the grandma rule is very similar to the golden rule, but I call it the grandma rule because my grandmother is one of the most important people in my life, and she is just an angel. And I would always want her treated spectacularly in any situation. And so I don't think you have to have an operations manual to tell people how to handle certain situations. An upset guest or member, upset franchisee. Remember the grandma rule, right? Which is do unto others as you would have done unto you. How do you want to be treated? And that, to me, that's empathy. That's the best way to describe it, is to treat others as the way that you would want to be treated.
I was going to say, is that how you would define it? Would be by the grandma rule? Or,
that's a funny way of putting it, right? But it really is. You don't have to complicate it, right? People want to be treated with respect. They want to be heard. And that's really what it comes down to. It's the golden rule. Treat others how you would want to be treated yourself.
Yeah, it's surprising how hard that is sometimes to get people to run their business by, and to find kind of their ability to connect with people and work with a higher purpose. But it's it's really when you get down to it, it's that kind of thing where you're treating people as you would want to be treated yourself. And I love that so much. I
agree with you, Stephen, though, and especially in challenging times, right? It's very hard to always do the right thing. And, no one's perfect, right? But I think that's when we come out and we say, look, I really messed up in this. I hear you now. And we are genuine and authentic, and we own it. And that's how we build relationships.
So how do you navigate like those moments where you've got the tough choices that are necessary to make, but you still want empathy to play the role in there?
Yeah, I think you have to be, again, it just comes down to collaboration and transparency. I think an example that I could give you is, I hate to go back 5 years ago, but it was one of the toughest things that we all went through. And as a company, we had to make decisions about, how we were going to move forward with getting franchisees reopened, and what team we were going to, we had to be frugal with money, and, all of those things. And I think that, working collaboratively with your franchisees, letting them know like where you're at, what you want to do, but what you're limited to perhaps, are some of the ways that you can get through that. And, an example, I guess, would be, knowing that there's costs associated with things, and everybody is in a situation where they've got to really watch those costs, right? I think having the discussion with your team, having discussion even with your closest franchisees about how we work through these things together is showing empathy. Instead of coming up, showing up as a franchisor, like I have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. We don't have all the answers. And so talking through those things and including them in the process of decision-making is often the best way to go about it.
Yeah, that's interesting. You're talking about sharing the costs. We're kind of going through this process of switching everything over to self-managed teams within our business. And in a way, they're kind of like these little franchises within the business, and just being able to share more things with them. Now they're understanding kind of the decisions management's making a Y, and then now they're in the trenches with us on those decisions. And for me, it's been great. It's just like, oh, you guys are going to help solve the problems for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. I've found that when I have actually said, I don't have all the answers, but this is what I'm thinking, people really show up. They really, really do. I mean, if you think about it, we're all so similar, right? We want love. We want respect. We want to be heard. I've said that a few times. And often you'll find that if you just sort of articulate the issue, people will show up for you and they'll help you solve the problem. I can give you a little bit of an example about that right now. So as we're going through this brand evolution, we've got 100 operating franchisees, and some of them have been with us for a long time, over 100. And we've got new franchisees coming in as well. And one of the things that we've done is we've created what we're calling the Next Gen Committee. And it is a group of franchisees and corporate team members as well, franchise advisory council members that are helping us identify. So in our existing locations that are currently operating, what are the minimum requirements that they would need to invest in order to become a Heights Wellness Retreat? Because it is different than Massage Heights. Mm-hmm. And the franchisees have really shown up and said, well, it's this, 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 and this. And I have to say that in many instances, it was far more than what I thought that they would say, because there's going to be costs associated with that. But what I thought versus what they're saying is what's important, right? Because what I thought was not at all really how they showed up. And that's amazing, because they're the ones then that are telling us, this is what would need to get done by the entire system. These are the minimums. And that's collaboration, and that's going alongside together. And you're on the journey together, instead of, the corporate entity saying, well, this is how it's going to be. Yeah. And that works out far better.
It's so much more powerful that way, I think.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, and then Shane, I would say that probably going through that experience, and then even, with that communication, it probably elevated the level of trust from you for the franchisees, and the franchisees, with corporate, I would guess, right? I mean, can you say a little bit more in terms of, what happened to trust in that situation?
Yeah, I will tell you that I personally believe, I feel it, I know it, that the level of trust in our franchise system is greater than it's ever been. Mm. There has been so much transparency in this process, really from the get-go. And that was, bringing a couple franchisees on early on as I was thinking about starting to go down this path. And it's been a vision for quite many years, actually. But as I was starting to execute on this, and including them along the way, again, they want to be part of it. They bought into this brand. It's as much theirs as it is, mine and ours. And bringing them along in that journey, because of the transparency, they know where we're at. They know what's being done, right? We're then able to communicate that to the broader system. You've got franchisees that are going to back it up. Because they know where we're at. And they've been part of it, and that just enhances the level of trust. And so it's been a really great, fun exercise for us, because you can't get things done as quickly if you're just going, if you're just the corporate team's doing it. It's bringing, and you're gonna have franchisees that we've got weekly meetings or biweekly meetings. It depends on what the committee is meeting for or what have you, but. With updates formally with the FAC once a month, and with the system-wide calls and all of that. And so it's a process that everybody feels like they're on with you, instead of us dictating, the thing and how it's going to be. And that just creates trust.
What a great, I think, display of empathy in that regard, right? So I love to think of empathy as sort of like your pain in my heart.
Yeah, I like that.
And I think that just is a great way to show it, right? Both shared pain in that sense, led to everyone working together in a stronger relationship, and kind of, taking on the challenge collectively versus, either top down or, bottom, independently of each other. So what a great example.
I love that. Your pain in my heart. That is a really great way to think about it. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to write that one down. Yeah.
I know. Well, that makes me think too, Shane, kind of about your journey. So you started out with kind of pain, and that's helped you really see things from the customer perspective, right? Being on the other side of that. So has your personal journey and the mission, making wellness accessible to people, shaped really the way you connect with customers?
Yeah, I would say so. Especially now with this opportunity to rebrand and evolve, it's really, when you step away from working in the retreats, sometimes you can kind of lose touch, right? And when you're not in the day-to-day operations, you can kind of lose touch. But if I go back to the early days, and the reason that we founded this company in the first place was I had a back pain, and what I found was that massage therapy was the only thing that really worked for what I had. And as we opened up these locations and I started talking to people coming in, and it's not like we had all this data. We didn't know what people were necessarily coming in for back in those times. But what we learned through the intake forms is that it was pain, it was stress, it was a lot of things. It wasn't fluff. It wasn't, I just want a day at the spa kind of stuff, right? And it was for good reason. And it just sort of validated really my thoughts and why I thought it would be a successful business, which was due to my own pain and how that solved that. So yeah, I mean, the way that I think about Massage Heights and Heights Wellness Retreats and the things that we're offering are, these are things that enhance a person's life. It helps you be the best version of yourself. And, but kind of getting back to the operations of it, as I'm digging in, and how I tell my team is we're building Disneyland right now. We've got this opportunity to build another amazing brand. It's still the same brand, we're evolving, but we've got this opportunity. And so if we're building Disneyland, what does it look like? How do we improve the processes in our operations from where they are today to really help the guest elevate, to be the best version of themselves and to be unstoppable? And so it's really been fun to kind of dig into that and put all the dots together, because this next version of Heights is a very different version of Heights. It's not just massage and skincare. It's holistic well-being. It's providing an opportunity for people to really come to one business, one Heights retreat, to solve a lot of their problems and to be the best versions of themselves. And so I'm always thinking of the guest experience. It's probably the thing that eats me up, frankly, all the time. The stuff that keeps me up at night, and always has been the thing that keeps me up at night, is how are we executing on this vision at the retreat level? And how do we make sure that all team members coming in, working with the franchisees, are executing the vision properly? At Heights, we call our experience the Cloud9 experience. And the Cloud9 experience is really a promise to our guests and members of having this really amazingly executed experience. So it doesn't matter if you're coming in for a massage or a facial, you're going to experience these amazing tables with the most luscious, I'm going to call them luscious linens, the table that you're just enveloped in comfort, and essential oils and all these things. But it's not just that specific experience in the massage or the skincare room. It's the experience that you're having with the team that greets you at the front desk as soon as you arrive. It's the experience in taking that guest from the Rise reception, where you're talking to them about their fitness goals or their wellness goals, and you're prescribing treatments that are going to help them reach those goals, to then taking them to transition into the well, where they're going to start the relaxation journey. And they might go into 20 minutes of meditation and vibration therapy, which is like a 2-hour nap. And then they're greeted, and they're then taken back into where the treatment rooms are for that next part of their experience. It's a journey, right? And so it's delivering on all of those touch points, and how we talk to them and how we say goodbye, right? Every bit is prescriptive, and it's based on their needs, not what we want them to have, but what they want and what they're trying to achieve. And so that is basically our Cloud9 experience. And so executing on that is really, really important. You can have a great brand, and the graphics can be good, the branding can be good, their build out can be good, but if the team member is not delivering on that experience, there's a disconnect, right? And so I think that this is where getting back to empathy and working with our franchisees to help us develop those systems and processes and our values and culture and all of that, getting alignment there, is where the magic happens, right? Is the magic happens when all of that comes together and it's executed and that guest can feel it. So sorry, I've just rambled on there, but
no. I've thought of a few questions there, but we have a guest question coming up here. So let's see. This is from LinkedIn. Shane, how do you ensure that empathy remains at the heart of how you care for and support your team, both in their personal growth and in their contributions to the company?
That's a great question.
Do they get to take part in the facilities themselves?
What is that?
I'm just wondering, like, because while you were talking, I was thinking about the future of business really looking at a more holistic approach to employee care.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I wonder, how you could implement, like, Shane, what you do into like a corporate sort of benefits or bonus, kind of program or something.
Yeah.
And then now I'm going back, well, I wonder if you guys do anything like that at all for your employees. Where
we do. They actually have, pardon me, this light, there is an allocation every month for employees for health and wellness that we reimburse them for. So that is one of the things that we do at the HQ level anyway. But I think also it's about understanding what their goals are. What are their career goals, and supporting them in that. And that could be, education that they would like to have to become better versions of themselves in their job, right? In their job role. But I think it's really understanding and what's important to them, what's important to them, and being respectful of what's important to them as well. We've got, family, obviously. Everybody's got families, and work and family life have to somehow or another merge together. And it's not always balanced. I think we all have to appreciate that too. We're kind of in a time of grind right now. It's kind of like this no days off mentality in some way, because we've got a lot to get done and we've got to deliver it very, very well. But it's being respectful of when that employee is off, they're off. When it is 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whatever, I'm not texting them and emailing them all night long saying what's going on here and what's going on there. It's having systems and processes in place, and bottom line, respect. Just going back to the golden rule, we may have to work hard during the day, and we might have to sometimes work late into the night and sometimes on the weekends when we've got certain things going on. But when there is time off, and when there is, when there's not something that's so significant that we've got to get it done now, we leave that alone and we let them have their space. I've heard people say that they've had bosses that would text them and message them and Teams them and whatever at all hours of every day and every night. And, you have to be respectful of people's time. They have, yes, the business is important. Supporting our franchisees is important, but you got to have a balanced life to some degree. And that means leaving them alone during their family time, if at all possible. Like I said, there's things that come up occasionally, but my general rule is leave them alone when it's their time.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so beautiful. We need a Heights wellness retreat here in South Orange County.
Yeah, you do. Well, you're probably going to have one pretty soon, actually.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, because I love what you said too, that it sounded like it's not just about the service that you're delivering, but I think you used the word restore. So this person that you're delivering the service to, you're able to restore them so that they can go on and achieve their purpose, or go on and achieve their goals. So I just love how Heights Wellness Retreat can be a part of that journey that they're going through.
Yeah. And it's mind body, right? And it really is mind body. And we know that today people are more health conscious than they've ever been before. And they are more open about their mental wellness, right? And their physical wellness. And that is the one good thing that came out of, 2020, I guess, is that people are far more aware. And they're talking about it. I mean, these younger generations are talking about, their coaches and therapists and all of that, right? And I think in the past, people have just been far more focused on physical wellness, and now it's holistic, right? And with Heights Wellness Retreat, and even with Massage Heights, with our massage and skincare treatments, I mean, we're providing physical wellness as well as mental wellness. But as we expand upon our services and we start offering cryotherapy and halotherapy and red light therapy and the really cool vibration therapy with meditation and all these things, it's really, really taking it to the next level for our guests and members, and providing a space where they can take a journey in this wellness plan and just be a better version of themselves. So we're working on some changes at our HQ office right now in San Antonio, because we've got to obviously update values and mission and vision and all of those things. Some of our colors have changed as well. And, we're talking about, well, how do we take some of those empty offices, because we do have a lot of remote workers in comparison to, years ago. And we turn it into a little mini Heights Wellness Retreat there, where our team members can get red light therapy while we're there. I've been told we can't bring in cryotherapy, which I'm upset about, but red light therapy or saunas and all of those inside of that corporate environment. But again, I think it just goes back to like understanding what's important to your team members, understanding when you can kind of push, and also say, hey guys, this is where we're at right now. This is what we got to get through, right? When people know what's on the horizon and how long they have to grind versus when they can take the break, and you establish that together and you're all in it together, it makes a very big difference than knowing that, this is going to end at some point and we're going to get back to a little more normal, or not knowing when it's going to end. No different than bringing these franchisees along on this journey. Got a lot of franchisees that are ready to retrofit their locations. And as long as they know where we're at and that we've already come a long way with it, they're going to keep engaging, and that trust is going to continue to be there. So I think it's just about open dialogue. So much of it is about open dialogue and just really understanding where people are at.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and be able to. It's nice that you have those systems in place to be able to capture that. I'm curious, with the name change. So I can imagine. Because you're more than just massage, it might have been, that term and the name no longer really necessarily fit, but it also seems like there was a lot of, conscious thinking going into including the word retreat. Can you tell us maybe a little bit about, through the rebrand, what went into the thought of, selecting the name?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one, we have always called our Massage Heights locations retreats. We don't call them stores. Or clinics or anything like that. They are more like a retreat. They've always been elevated. It's more like a spa, but a convenient spa. So you're not paying for the spa prices, and you don't have, the wet areas and all of that. But that's part of it. It's been in our DNA for a very, very, very long time. But truly, Massage Heights and Heights Wellness retreats are really like a retreat away from the daily grind, I think is the best way to put it. So the idea is that you come in for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and you're able to get your mind and your body right. That you're taking space for yourself, and it's a little mini retreat. So that's really also, I will tell you that we did do gathered a lot of data. We had a number of words that we thought about using. We thought about using the word vitality. We thought there's a lot that kind of went into it. We have got a very, very strong database of members and guests. And so we, of course, leverage the database of members and guests to talk to them about what Heights means to them. And then we also had a third party that targeted some different demographics as well. And so that's ultimately how we landed on it. We had a good hunch, and we wanted to really kind of, I guess, protect sort of what was in the DNA, but we were just validated through the data that we collected, which was awesome.
Yeah. I would say, from our perspective as an agency, I think it gives you a lot of, longevity, great differentiation in terms of the word retreat. But I think, where we connect with our clients is really around that authenticity and that purpose. And, with Heights, I think it really does come back to, your purpose of restoring individuals and helping them, achieve maybe the goals that they're looking to achieve. So Shane, I want to bring it back a little bit to more of the corporate side of things and talk a little bit about the balance of empathy and accountability, because sometimes leaders might feel that the two maybe don't coincide. So I'm a little curious, like, how do you balance empathy with accountability in your leadership? And are there some sort of systems that you use then to ensure that goals are still met, but that everyone is supported and that the culture, is still a supportive culture?
Yeah, I think I learned the hard way in some ways, and that is culture without accountability is just, you're not going to get anything done, right? So you've got to have, I think, a very clear-cut culture, and you've got to bring people in based on your values. Utilize those values for who you bring into your team, how you coach, and who you don't keep, right? And often when the values are clear, people will kind of work themselves in or work themselves out. And so I think that system is really important. And then, so you've got to have those values, and you have to think about, well, does this person match this value or that value? But then you've got to have the accountability factor too. And it's clear goals and metrics, right? We've all got to be working towards the thing. We know what we're working towards, and we're all accountable for this. And this is your metric, and this is mine. And maybe these are shared. And, so we've got our kind of values-based accountabilities, but we also have our metric-based accountabilities. And, there's various different systems for that, of course, but we use EOS as what we use for tracking and making sure that we're on track or off track. And so it's an entrepreneurial operating system, if you're not familiar with it, but it's a great system. And so it's a combination of are they a good values fit? Coaching on those things, recognizing for those things. As a matter of fact, as we're evolving the brand, we are in the middle of rebuilding our values as well, which makes sense. The values that we started with are not necessarily the values that we have today, especially with Heights Wellness Retreat, where, our mission is really to empower people to be unstoppable. And so what does that look like from a values perspective? Well, to me, it looks like anything is possible. You have a mindset of abundance. Right. And if we're looking at bringing a team member on or a franchisee, what is their mindset? Do they think abundantly? Do they, does a team member, when they get a challenge from a franchisee, do they say no? Or do they say, anything is possible. We can figure out how to get that done. How do we work together? That's empathy, right? Listening, hearing, talking through it together and figuring out how we get it done. We're not just going to say no. And if we end up saying no, we'll talk to you about why we say we can't do it that way. Here's the reason. It's not just to say no to you. It's because we operationally can't get that done or whatever it is, So I don't know if I answered the question. I think I just went off.
Yeah, I think for sure, to me, when it comes to empathy and accountability, they're like guardrails on a road. And we need guardrails on both sides of the road, right? And being able to balance it. You can't have one because then you might lose the culture, or sometimes individuals may not feel as supportive because they're not being listened to. So I think you totally answered it in the sense that we got to have both without a doubt. Yeah.
Shane, what kind of advice would you give leaders who want to cultivate empathy in their leadership style, but kind of don't know where to start?
That's an interesting question. I think what comes to mind first is really, know what's important to your team. We're a small team. I feel like, and I've got some people on my team that have been around me for a very long time. I know what's important in their lives, but I think that we all need to understand first and foremost what makes people tick, what's important to them. In a franchise system, one of the things that we do is we really try to understand when a franchisee is coming in to the system, what is it that they are wanting to achieve? What does life look like for them in 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, 1, right? And I think we need to really kind of understand that about our teams too. And then be supportive of those things. So, we've got to build a bench that's strong, not be afraid to build that bench, right? As leaders, you want to build people that can take your place, bottom line. And, if for some reason somebody, excels out and goes on and does something else, good for them. That's wonderful. That means you did your job and helping them get there, hopefully. But I think start with what their goals are. And I feel like I know a lot of that about my core team. I know what their goals are, but at one point, maybe I should get back to doing this. At one point I had this thing that was like, literally, if you could do one thing, what would it be? And, help them get to that, whatever that is, right? If somebody wants to buy their first home, or their first car, or, whatever it is, help them figure out how to get to that. But we need to understand this about our team members and what's important to them. That's a starting point.
Yeah, I think so too. Like we did an exercise, I don't know, a year ago or so, where we kind of just queried everybody, like, what's your higher purpose, and kind of got what motivated them really well. And then how can we work that into what they're doing with the company? And I think, a lot of what we do, or at least myself, and other leaders, I think like yourself, especially in the franchise model, it's in service to other people, right? And when you kind of flip that role a little bit in leadership, I think that's really how empathy kind of naturally flows, is like, how can I help you? And, you start to understand with that question, what issues they have, what their concerns are, or like you said, hey, I want to get to buy a house at some point. And so anything you can do with A, B, C, D. So yeah, I think you kind of hit on it pretty well on helping leaders, trying to find that starting point. Mike, you got any last questions before we wrap up here? We got a few more minutes.
Yeah, I want to hear just a little bit with regards to goals. You have the next set of goals for Heights Wellness Retreat, Shane. But how does empathy play a role in achieving those goals?
Oh, how does empathy play a role in achieving those goals? Well,
could be like what I said, Mike, there, where it's like, if, we're kind of sharing those goals a little bit,
right? Shared vision,
and we understand what their concerns are and what their primary motivations are.
Yep. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. It is that question of what can I do for you, right? And if we're all asking that same question of each other, boy, that can make for something really, really special, right? So I have an example. I actually was visiting some franchisees right before the holidays, and I asked them, what can I do for you, right? And they turned around and asked me the same. And it felt so good. I mean, when we're all asking each other, what can I do for you? Wow, that has impact, right? And I think that just actually shows a level of respect and commitment to one another as well. And it's just about listening and leaning on each other. And, we do that with our teams. We do it with our franchisees. And you're right. It's not easy to do every single day. You get into these binds, you get into timelines, crunches and things like that. And it's hard to show up perfectly every single day. But I do think that if your teams know who you really are, that you are an authentic person, and you apologize when you don't get it right, you own it. There's grace in that, right? We have to give each other grace in that as well. So we're not perfect as leaders. And that's the first thing we have to recognize, is we're not expected to be perfect. We're not expected to know all the answers, right? People appreciate it when we go to them for their expertise. And so it's okay to ask for help yourself. And if we go in it together saying, what can I do for you? And we're all doing that, that to me makes a wonderful world.
Great. I love that so much. Shane, there's a question I always ask at the show, and in one version or another, I'd like to ask that. So what role do you think love plays in business?
What role do I think
love plays in business?
Ooh, love. What role does love play in business? Can you elaborate on what?
Well, where I guess empathy is a part of that process. Compassion, just leading general.
Leading with heart.
Brotherly love.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, we spend more hours at our jobs than anything else in our lives, right? And again, I think it just comes back down to when the culture's fit and the right people are on the team, you gravitate towards one another, and you become friends, right? More people stay in a work environment because the people that they work with than any other reason, and they won't leave for more if they love the people that they work with, right? And so I think love is important. I mean, love is showing care for one another. It's showing respect for one another. It's showing up and helping, right? It's understanding when somebody's had a bad day and maybe they're not equipped to take on this thing, and me saying, hey, I got that for you, right? So I think that's how love works in business.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing about your journey with Heights Wellness Retreat. Where can people go to learn more about your business and franchise?
Yeah, they can go to heightswellnessretreatfranchise.com. Go to my LinkedIn, Shane Evans. But that would be the core, that'd be the right link.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Be sure to follow the Bliss Business Podcast for more conversations with purpose-driven leaders and making a difference. And we'll see you next time.